Hello!
Hi there and happy Sunday. We are the Cardinals and we're welcoming you back for our 30th week online.
Yeah, so welcome. We've got a great service lined up for you where we're going to worship together, break bread together, and of course hear the Word of God. So please sit back, enjoy, and we're going to kick off with some worship.
I saw Satan fall like lightning. I saw darkness run for cover. But the miracle that I just can't get over, my name is registered in heaven. I believe in signs and wonders. I have resurrection power. Still the miracle that I just can't get over, my name is registered in heaven. My praise belongs to you forever. This is my testimony from death to life, 'cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify by Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. Come together, sons and daughters, bought with blood and washed in water. Sing the praises of the Spirit, Son and Father. Our God will finish what He started. Our God will finish what He started. This is my testimony from death to life, 'cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify by Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. Yes. This is my testimony from death to life, 'cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify about Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony, now I'm alive. This is my testimony from death to life, 'cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify about Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony.
Good morning. Unless you've been living under a rock recently, you'll know that we're doing things a little bit differently. For instance, for communion, we now have these individual cups. We've always had the individual cups, but now we've got the wafer, and even that is a far cry from what I grew up with in Cairnbulg Assembly. And even the Fraserburgh Assembly, I'm guessing. If you go back that far, it was one cup with a hanky, and you passed it to your neighbour, and you took a drink, and you wiped it, and you passed it on to your neighbour. Not so good for the coronavirus and the social distancing, but hey, that was back in the day. But that is something biblical about that. In 1 Corinthians 10, it says, one bread and one church. It also says the cup is the new covenant. Now, that covenant is between us and God. When the moment that Jesus died, the veil in the temple was torn in two. And the significant thing about that is the temple veil separated the Holy of Holies from the rest of the sanctuary. That was where the presence of God rested, where the presence of God lived. But the veil wasn't torn by man. It was torn from the top to the bottom. God tore that veil because he wanted communion with us, with his church, with his one body. Just as we take the bread and the cup this morning, just let's remember that we do it in unity. You might not be managing to get along to the services just now. You may be housebound, you're maybe still shielding, or you may be just not getting booked in time. But just remember that you're not alone, and we do this in unity to remember the sacrifice that the Lord God made for us.
Holiness with human hands, treasure for the traitor. No ear had heard, no eye had seen the image of the Father, till heaven came to live with me, a rescue like no other. Yes, you are worthy. You are worthy of your name. Yes, you are worthy. You are worthy of your name, my Jesus. You did not speak, you made no sound. You died for your accusers, and as your blood fell to the ground, you redefined my future. And on the day when you arose, the darkness ran for cover. For the King of Kings has claimed his throne, now until forever. Yes, you are worthy. You are worthy of your name. Yes, you are worthy. You are worthy of your name. Yes, you are worthy. You are worthy of your name. Yes, you are worthy. You are worthy of your name, my Jesus. You're my author, my maker, my ransom, my savior, my refuge, my hiding place. 'Cause you're my helper, my healer, my blessed redeemer, my answer, my saving grace. 'Cause you're my hope in the shadows, my strength in the battles, my anchor for all my days. And you stand by my side, and you stood in my place. Jesus, no other name. Only Jesus, no other name.
We are continuing with our Survivor series again this week, and our word today is brought by Mr. Victor West.
I'm sure Benjamin will enjoy it too.
Hello, I hope you're well. It's great to see you again in Central Online. Thanks for Ian for doing a great communion there, reminding us of what it used to be like in terms of cups and hankies. I'm glad we're past that. It was really good to see the Cardinals as well tonight, and little Ben being out. He celebrated his 2nd birthday this week. So we're getting them in young here in Central Online. But it's good to see people involved. We're missing more people, aren't we, at this time? We've started back at church in a small way. We've had 3 services over the last 3 weeks, and we've packed out the place as much as we can, 50, with the government guidelines. But it's great to see those that have attended. But we're missing everyone at this moment. And it's, although we've got the young guys on the set as young as Ben, we've got Matthew and Samantha, and the people who you've seen week to week, there's a lot of people we're not seeing. Some are self-isolating, some are looking after themselves in different ways. But we just want to put a shout out to everyone just now to say that we miss you and we're looking forward to seeing you again, hopefully soon. But we don't know, do we? It's all a little bit of an unknown at this time. Here, beginning of October 2020, we're not quite in lockdown, or we are in lockdown. We're not sure how long this is going to last. It's all a bit strange. So when Pastor Ben decided to introduce us to the Survivor series a few weeks ago, I must admit I thought that's extremely timely, because at this moment, sometimes we've just got to hang on in there and survive the moment we're in. We've talked about Paul and how he survived some massive things in his life. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about a survival kit to survive some of the big things and maybe just some of the small things, maybe even getting through just the day-to-day of life and what we're in. But I want to say this to you, that victory comes from survival. Victory comes from survival, and success is a product of hanging in there. Romans 8:37 says, "No, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us." And I'm going to go back to that verse a little bit later and discuss it in a fuller way. And I want us to maybe have a look at that verse and see it slightly differently today. But sometimes we've just got to hang on in there to see a success come through. And I know you're successful people. Hebrews 13:8 says, "Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever." So all of the chaos, everything that's changing around about us, all of the uncertainty, the unknown, what's next? We know that Jesus is our steady rock. You know, I like statistics, but I've switched off from the stats at the moment because I don't like them. You know, to hear about all of these extra people that have caught COVID or everybody that's ill, I just don't want to hear about it. So I've sort of switched off. You know, even in my own head at times, I think, what is going on? But I'm so glad that I can go back to Jesus Christ, the same yesterday, today, and forever. He gives me a firm foundation. Let me give you one more verse before I get into the survival kit. And it's Acts 17:24. I'll let you read it for yourself. Acts 17:24. But the start of that verse says, "He holds the world and everything in it." What a comfort to know that Jesus Christ, my friend, holds the world and everything in it. So this morning, I just want us to have a look for a short minute or two on a survival kit. And we're going to have a look at some peas, not frozen peas, but peas in the letter, things that we need to have in our survival kit. So this is part 3 of the survival series. And we all know that part 3s aren't as good as part 1 and 2s. Then what happens is the directors and everyone involved with it realise that they've got to lift part 4 or it's a disaster. So what we've done, part 4, we've taken out the big guns. Sam Moyer is up next week on survival part 4. So look out for that. However, this week, part 3. Here it goes. But Paul, Ben introduces to Paul through 2 Corinthians 11, 23 and 33. And what an amazing life Paul had. And even in his own words, as he summarised some of the events of his life, you know, he had 39 lashes 5 times. He'd been beaten with rods. He'd been stoned and left for dead. And by the way, the very following day, he went on a journey. So how someone is left for dead one day, then the next day they go on a journey, it's miraculous. This guy was a bit of a Superman, really. You know, he was stoned. He survived a day and night at sea without a boat. He really was a bit of an incredible guy. So how do you do that? And I just want to have a look at a few things from Paul's life that we can use in our own journeys. And a few things. I want to talk about patience, and patience with ourselves as well as others, and perseverance. I want us to have a look at people. We need people in our survival kit. And of course we need purpose and a plan. But just before we get to that, I want us just to remind you of Paul's conversion. And we read that story in Acts chapter 9. And Paul was a horrible, vile man before heaven arrested his life. He was trying to threaten people, bully people, even to the point where he was threatening to murder people. He was actually messing with people's minds. He was not a nice guy at all. Then one day, whilst he was on his job, messing with people, heaven itself actually interrupted what he was doing and stopped him dead in his tracks. And I want us to see 2 things very quickly from that moment. And the first I want to encourage you with is this. When Paul was stopped in his tracks, he didn't become the perfect human being at that point. Yes, he stopped bullying people. He stopped trying to threaten and murder people. He stopped all that because he had to. You can't go on doing those things. That had to stop. But he then had a whole lifetime of trying to be a better human being. It never happened right in that instance. Paul tells us about that all through the New Testament, how he took time to develop his character into the likeness of Jesus Christ. So the first thing I want you to remember today is this. We're not perfect. None of us are perfect. And at times, we're on a journey that feels as though it's taken a long time, and we sometimes feel as though we'll never get there. But Paul was the same. It took him a long time to get there. He never met Jesus on the road to Damascus, then was fit for church the following day. He went to church, but he wasn't perfect. And if you meet Jesus, you'll still have a lot of baggage and mess and everything to work through. That's okay. It takes a lifetime to do that. So be encouraged. If you're looking at your own situation just now and thinking, I'm in a mess, that's fine. It doesn't matter as long as we're on that journey with Jesus. Which takes me to the next point. He met Jesus. Paul's on the road there. He's just had this miraculous sort of moment, and he's not quite sure what's happened. And he's there, and he says, "Who are you?" He's talking to something. And the answer comes back in Acts verse 9. I am Jesus. And I want to ask you right at the start of this today, have you met Jesus? You need to meet Jesus. It's so important. You could be in a prison cell at this moment in time, and you could have done the most heinous of crimes, and you could be watching your life disappear in front of you. You could be sitting in the luxury of a beautiful house with a life that people can only dream about. You need Jesus. No matter where you are in the spectrum of that today, you need to know Jesus. So, nobody's perfect, and it takes time. And you need to know Jesus. Come on, let's have a look at the P's that need to be in our survival kit. So the first couple of P's actually, patience and perseverance. I've heard so many Christians sort of say that I wish everyone could just have a conversion like Paul. They meet Jesus Christ and then they're fixed for life. If only it was that simple. If only it had been that simple for Paul as well. As I said earlier, it wasn't. He had a whole lifetime of change to come. And we're the same. We've got a whole lifetime of change, but it's an exciting change. It's a change that you're doing with heaven on your side, with Jesus Christ as your friend, and it can be a fantastic journey. And we're going to look at plan and purpose in a few minutes and explore that a little bit more. But, you know, we need time, and often I think we've got to have patience with ourselves. Yes, we have to have patience with others, but often it's we give up on ourselves and decide we can't complete the journey. We're not good enough. I want to say this morning, you are good enough. Just give yourself a little bit more patience. Yes, we've got to persevere, but patience and perseverance. There's a friend that we have in the church, and he's also called Paul, Paul Innes. And Julie and Paul have been on a couple of times, and Paul has spoken to us as well. A fantastic guy within the church, a great example in so many ways. But Paul, and I have permission for this, when Paul, I spoke to him this week and just checked off that this was all right. But Paul, when he got saved, he had a long way to go and a lot of things to work through. And some of his old habits were still there after he got saved. And it took a bit of time to remove those habits from his life. As Paul joked himself last Sunday online, at least he didn't keep getting stoned like the Apostle Paul did after he got saved. But you can ask Paul Innes about that if you want. But we'll all go on a journey. We can't judge others as well when we're on that journey. As I said earlier, Romans 8, 3 and 7, all these things, we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. You know, being stoned, being whipped, being shipwrecked, spending a day at sea hanging on to a plank of wood, I don't think is conquering. I don't see the conquer in that. I don't see the victory in that. The reality is this, being a conqueror, and I just want to read this, I read this, the reality is being a conqueror is not about winning the fight, but about staying in the fight. It's not about winning it always, it's about staying in it. Living for Jesus, we are promised heaven. That's the ultimate in the conquer. We know that. But whilst here on earth, we're going to be in many fights, and we've got to stay in them. How do you conquer grief? It's impossible. How do you conquer it when a loved one that you know is going to pass away? But sometimes we've just got to stay in that fight and not let the circumstances overwhelm us. How do we stay in the fight when family members are in a difficult situation? How do we stay in the fight when we've lost our job and we don't understand? The reality is, you know, being a conqueror, we can't win all of these situations, but we've got to battle through them. I honestly believe, as I look at Paul's life, I don't see the conquer in being whipped. I don't see a conquering in being shipwrecked. I don't see a conquering in being chased out of a town, being put in jail. But he said, in all these things, we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. Being a conqueror is staying true to the fight and staying in the fight. And you know something? The best thing about this fight is that Jesus is with us. Pastor Ben spoke about the scars of survival last week, and I was standing outside the church and at the second service, and I saw a few people coming out of the church, and I knew something had happened because they were crying. And I thought, ooh, Ben's sermon hasn't gone too well today. But so I asked one or two people what was up, and it was just incredible what had happened in the service. During communion, we'd had a little time of prayer, and one or two people who've got some big scars through COVID stood up and gave God thanks, even that time where scars were fresh and raw upon their life. They'd lost loved ones, but yet at that time they could give God thanks for his great mercies and what he's done. That's winners, that's conquerors, that's people of victory. What a great place to be, that we can give ourselves, patience, a bit of perseverance and stick to the task of going through the situation. So the first thing to put in your kit bag is give yourself a bit of patience. Don't be so hard on yourself. And know that God is in the midst of it with you. Persevere. Put those in the kit bag. The next P for the survival kit is people. We can't do life without people. And certainly at this moment in time, it is much harder to connect with people, which is a great shame. I read a tweet from Rich Wilkerson Jr. last week, which I really, really liked. It says, "I have enough weaknesses of my own to deal with. I don't have time to judge somebody else for theirs." I thought that was great, because if we want to do life with people, we've got to be honest, and people have got to feel safe in our company. And people around us have got to know that we've got a standard and we have a philosophy of being kind to people. And who am I to judge anyone else when I've got so many of my own issues to sort first? And really that is a sense, and hopefully the sense you'll get if you come to church with us in AOG Central, that we're not here to judge you, but we're here to support you as we work through our own journeys together. And some of those journeys will intertwine and we can walk together on those journeys. But people are so important. And it's not just about people looking after us. I think the best way to have friends is to actually look after them and invest into others and their lives. And by doing that, people take an interest in you. So if you want to have people in your kit bag, people doing journey with you, set your stall out to invest and give to them. Don't wait for people to invest and give you things. You invest into them. But putting and helping others is a great thing. Paul loved people. The Apostle Paul loved people. Paul Innes that I talked about is as a guy that loves people. Paul and Julie are a couple that they just love people. And I've learned a lot from Paul Innes about loving people. Because sometimes I don't understand people. They may come from a different area, a different walk of life, and I don't always understand where they're coming from. And something I've learned from Paul Innes is, doesn't matter, Victor, just love them anyway. And it's so true. Just love them anyway. Whether I understand them, what does that matter? Just love on them. Julie made that statement one week and I loved it. She says when she went to Aberdeen Church, they just loved on her. Isn't that great to just love on people? So Paul, he loved on people. I've picked a few names, and there's many through the New Testament I could have picked. But Apollos became a preacher round about the same time as Paul. And Paul endorsed him. Paul encouraged him. Paul helped him. It would have been so easy for Paul to maybe being a little bit jealous of him. How often are we in that place where someone does the same thing as we do, and we're a little bit jealous of them, or we don't want them to succeed too much? Paul did the absolute opposite. He encouraged him, he helped him, he supported him, he put him up front. Let's do that with the people in our lives. In particular, those people that are maybe doing the same things as we are. There's plenty to go around, I can assure you of that. We've got Timothy, a young man that Paul met, and Paul took him in some of the journeys with him. He encouraged Timothy, he held him up, he prayed over Timothy, he spent so much time with him and invested so much into him. But he also knew Timothy's granny, actually, Granny Lois, as it was, but his grandmother Lois and his mother Eunice. Paul understood the value of people. And as I started today, I said we're missing people that we do life with in the church. Not just the younger ones, but older ones as well, those that have been here a little bit longer. If I only spend time with people my age, I'll have a pretty small scope of life. I want to spend time with young people, I want to spend time with older people as well. So my life has a wider scope. And I would encourage you, if you only spend time with people your age, your life will become very, very narrow. Broaden the horizon of people you spend time with. Encourage more people than you currently do. Certainly seek out people that are either 20 years younger than you or 20 years older than you. Don't stick to the people just your age. Broaden your horizons and your experience of people. People are great fun to be around, even when they're being a bit naughty. They're good fun to be around. There's that old saying, isn't it? The definition of a friend. If you're in trouble, a friend will come and help you out. But our real friend will be in trouble with you already. And that's the point, isn't it? We want to do life together. So value people and make sure there's people in your kit bag. Paul also had fights with people as well. Paul and Barnabas were great friends. They did a lot of travelling together and they spent a lot of time together and they had many exploits. Some of the problems that we talked about and some of the journeys that Paul did, Barnabas was there with him. But there came a point one day when Barnabas, and his name translates to son of encouragement, Barnabas wanted to take John Mark with him, and Paul did not want to take John Mark, and the two of them had a huge fight over it. And they separated for a period of time. But thankfully, they reconciled. And I want to encourage you today, two things. Pick your travelling companions. If you're going to go through life with people, make sure you pick the right people to do life with. But secondly, if there comes a moment where you maybe have a set to or a disagreement or you don't see eye to eye, don't let that fester for long. Make up. Don't let that hang around. Make sure that you get back together and talk to each other quickly. And that's what Paul and Barnabas did. They fell out over John Mark, but they came back together. The good news is John Mark made it. He was a good guy, actually. Barnabas, the son of encouragement, whether it was his encouragement that did that, but he worked out okay. Paul didn't always get it right, and we don't always get it right. Sometimes we can make mistakes. But what I do know is an encouraging person is a great person to be around. So be an encourager to that wide scope of people that you know. Titus and Luke, they spent a lot of time as travelling companions as well with Paul. Paul always liked people around about him. He knew that loneliness was a killer. And I would say that to you today as well. Don't get lonely. Work hard not to be lonely. Be around people. Even in these times when it's difficult to be with people, phone calls, texts, Zoom, whatever it is, make sure that you've got people time. It's so important. It's what we're designed with. We need to have people round about us. Paul often organised these mission trips around people, and sometimes he would stay in a place longer because someone was there that he wanted to meet. Make sure there is good people in your survival bag. At times we're going to be on difficult journeys. You want the right people with you at that moment. I've had the privilege of being connected with the local church for a long time, and I've had a lot of great people come across my path and influence my life. Some of them younger, some of them a bit older. Some of them aren't here anymore, and we've lost them in the last few months. But some great people that have had some great influences. But during the time as well, in this crazy time of COVID and lockdown, we've started an online live group, and I've really enjoyed it. I didn't think I'd really like it, but the group of people that are on it are actually really good fun. We meet once a week, and the live group is great. But although we meet once a week in the virtual, there's text messages and WhatsApp goes along all week. And we started to do a little bit of life together. Just recently there was a bereavement of someone, his loved one, and we could share a little bit of encouragement and tell them that, you know, we're with them. It was absolutely brilliant. I just want to encourage you, two things there. Get involved with the local church. Wherever you're at in the world today, get involved with the local church. It's absolutely brilliant. They're not perfect. Let's be clear, they're not perfect, but get involved. And if you can get connected with a life group or something like that, go for it. It can be a lifesaver during the week and a great help on anyone's journey. The last two P's in this kit bag for tonight is plan and purpose. Paul talks about goals. I wish Man United knew a little bit more about goals. The right side goals anyway. Philippians 3:14 says, I press on towards the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. Colossians 2:2, my goal is that they may be encouraged in heart and united in love. Yeah, I'll let you read the rest of it. Colossians 2:2. When Paul met God, he was given a new purpose. No longer was he threatening and bullying and being a vile human being, but God set him apart to bring hope to people's life, to bring peace to people's life, to bring unity into people's life, to point them towards Jesus Christ. He was repurposed in his life. What I find more than anything else, that busy people are survivors. People with purpose are survivors. I'm a great believer in giving account for the 168 hours I'm given each week. I like to have a plan and a purpose for most of those hours. And I want to encourage you today, put plan and purpose into your kit bag. Let God repurpose your life for his work and for his glory. You know, as we're in this time, you know, planning takes patience and perseverance, the first point. It does take a bit of patience and perseverance, and often it takes a check and balance of people helping us to develop the right plan. But I want to encourage us now, spend some time understanding God's plan and purpose for your life. And with that, I'm just going to close. But it was great to talk to you again today, and we're just going to get a little bit of worship just now. But just as the worship starts, we're going to put that prayer up on the screen again. And if you want to know Jesus, like I said right at the start, Paul met with Jesus. The first step on that is maybe to pray this prayer. And if you do pray that prayer today, get in contact with us. We'd love to hear from you and help you on that journey. But that's the peas in the survival kit bag for today. You know, don't be so hard on yourself. Be patient, but persevere. Make sure you've got good people around about you, and be good to people. Take time to have a plan and purpose. Look after yourselves. See you soon.
And I know that I need you. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again and again and again. You saw my condition, had a plan from the start. Your son for redemption, the price for my heart. And I don't have a context for that kind of love. I don't understand, I can't comprehend. All I know is I need you. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, again and again and again and again. Oh, my heart has been in your sights long before my first breath, running into your arms is running to life from death. And I feel this rush deep in my chest. Your mercy is calling out. Just as I am, you pull me in, and I know I need you. to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, again and again and again and again.
Thank you, Victor, for another great word. I'm sure we're all inspired.
So Church Online has been a bit different for us all, and it's great to hear the good stories that's coming out of church now that we are actually back physically in the building. So we still are running 3 services, and you need to book yourself in to one of those 3 services. How you do that is you go to Eventbrite at 2 p.m. today, Sunday, and get yourself booked in. And remember, if you don't get booked into one of the 3 services, you will be able to put your name on a waiting list, and if anything changes, we can then get you in. So be prepared, get online, get yourself booked in for next week. So church, it's been a privilege to lead you in the service this morning. We love our church, and we are certainly missing seeing our family. And as of course during the COVID-19 outbreak, it's been a little bit different in terms of showing affection. So we would like just to shoot you some love today as a way of showing our affection, show that we're missing you, and look forward to seeing you soon. Okay? Shoot a kiss. You got to shoot a kiss? Good boy. Bye guys.
Bye.